All right, good afternoon. Thank you for your patience. We're going to start with our guest. If we could put him on the screen. Excellent. And I'm delighted to welcome Dennis Zulu, who is the UN resident coordinator in Jamaica, covering the Bahamas, Bermuda, Cayman Islands, Turks and Caicos. We obviously asked him to come in and brief you uh, regarding the situation with Hurricane Melissa. So, Dennis, first of all, thank you for taking the time. We'll let you make some opening comments and then take a few questions. Please go ahead, Dennis.
Thank you so much, and thank you for giving me this opportunity to address the media in what really is a very difficult situation for us in Jamaica. As you know, Hurricane Melissa made landfall as a Category 5 yesterday, just around lunchtime, through a place called Black River in St. Elizabeth, which is one of the parishes in Jamaica, and really went across the island and exited about 6 hours later. From what we know thus far, there's been tremendous, unprecedented devastation of infrastructure, of property, roads, network connectivity, energy has been lost across its path. But what is very unique is that the impact of Melissa, though very dire in this area, has actually spread across the country. We know very well that there's been massive dislocation of services. We have people living in shelters across the country. And at the moment, what we are seeing in preliminary assessments is a country that's been devastated to levels never seen before. So at the moment, the United Nations is working in partnership with the national authorities and indeed other partners, both the bilateral and multilateral partners, to really undertake the first assessment of the extent of the problem and see how we can respond expeditiously to alleviating those who are in need at the moment, which is a huge number, although we don't actually have actual figures, but we estimate to be a very large number. We have therefore working close with government and the Caribbean Disaster Emergency Management Agency, CDMA, putting together a response. And immediately, some of the actions that will be taken is really around life support initiatives or life sustaining initiatives, making available water, food, and other resources that immediately in need by the people being affected. We're also working with government to try and support the shipment of vital supplies from our hubs in Barbados. So there's quite a lot of work going around shipping supplies from Barbados as well as shipping into the country. Several specialists who might be needed to support the response effort. As of now, we are seeing that there's movement towards some sort of semblance of normality, although this will take a bit of time given the destruction around the country. The airports, it is thought will, at least one of them in Kingston will open tomorrow, all things being equal, and has facilitate an inward flow of resources that are badly needed in the country at the moment. So the UN, working very closely with partners, is studying the situation at the moment and really looking towards how we can support the process of supporting those who've been adversely affected. We have at the moment some teams out already, although it's quite dangerous in some parts of Jamaica, just really to get an initial feeling of what has happened and how we can make that difference for those affected at the shortest time possible. So the UN is also coordinating the support of other bilateral partners. I did say this earlier on, and hopefully we should be able to get all of us working in tandem, which is critical in situations as the one we're in. So uh, devastation, extensive, and really calling upon all partners and goodwill wishes across the world to support Jamaica. Jamaica had been making tremendous progress towards sorting out its economic situation. It was upward looking. Sorted out its debt issues. But now, with what has happened, it will take a lot of resources to be able to reconstruct and get it back on the upward trajectory. So, the country of Jamaica and the government and the people of Jamaica need the support of all of us, really, to get them back to to some state of normality. And this, we have no doubt, will take a bit of time. It's when you look at the level of devastation, it's very different to what we experienced last year with Hurricane Beryl, which affected Jamaica but did not land. And this time around, we had Hurricane Melissa landing and really devastating the country to the levels never seen before. So thank you so much for this opportunity, and willing to take on any questions if there are any.
Dennis, Ephraim, please.
Thank you so much, Mr. Zulu, for this briefing. Quick question. I know you said you don't have the numbers yet of people affected, but can you give us any sort of estimate, please? That's one. Second, what can you tell us about the plans that were put in place by the government? The authorities are saying that they did everything possible to prepare for Melissa landing. What can you tell us about those plans, and how much have they been helpful? And are people who are affected in touch with their governments? They know what to do, where to go, and where the help is. Thank you.
Mhm. Thank you so much. So, as you know, this is an island of approximately 3 million people, and Hurricane Beryl hits the southwestern parishes, which account for a significant number of people. So, I can't really give you a figure, but we are obviously looking at over a million, and this is a rough ballpark figure, a million affected. And we're going to get much more accurate as we look at and send out the assessment teams across Jamaica. But let me just say that I don't think there's any single soul on this island was not affected by Hurricane Melissa, whether it was or their gardens. And as I might just want to mention this, the area where Hurricane Melissa struck is also the breadbasket of Jamaica. So not only will food crops and fields destroyed, but we also see a possibility, a very likely possibility, that Jamaica will have some issues in terms of food security for the coming months as the farmers go back to getting their fields planted again. Well, in terms of preparation, yes, I think we've known for a while now that over a week that Hurricane Melissa was going to pass through Jamaica, although there was some certainties as to the actual path. And government went out of its way, I must say, in terms of prepping. Shelters were opened, information was shared across the different media, alerting people to the forthcoming hurricane. Government even made available transportation to move out those who might have been considered to be in very vulnerable areas, to move them to safe locations. The government reached out to development partners such as ourselves in the UN, working together to see how we could have a coordinated response. So I'm saying that government did its very best, and I guess the fact that Hurricane Melissa was moving very slowly gave government and ourselves adequate time to sort of prepare. Obviously, in situations such as the ones we're in, nothing works according to clockwork. So we are really trying to see how we can help government sort of remedy those situations. But the devastation is huge, and government did its best to sort of prepare for what we saw in the last few days.
Thank you very much. We'll go online to Jackie Charles from the Miami Herald.
Hi, thank you. Um, right now we're not hearing much in terms of any casualties, and I'm wondering, well, if it stays this way, what would you credit that to? Jamaica's always struggled with getting people to move into shelters. And so, what are your thoughts? And then, in terms of the rebuilding process, given where Jamaica has been, I mean, what do you see in terms of rebuilding? How much of a struggle is this going to be?
Right. Yes. So casualties. I think so far we only know of 3 deaths, and these deaths occurred prior to the landing of Hurricane Melissa. I think one of them was attributed to somebody who was making preparations. So they were cutting down trees and unfortunately got hurt and eventually died from those injuries. The other, I think, 2 were electrocuted because of loose line wires. As I said, we've had some fairly heavy rains prior to Melissa, so there was already some fairly precarious conditions around. So in terms of death, only 3 reported thus far. Obviously, right now we are seeing, and I did speak to my WHO power colleagues, some injuries coming through. But again, given the level of devastation, flooding, we do not necessarily have accurate information beyond the 3 deaths reported and a number of people having some injuries. So that respect, but I'm sure we'll be able to get some more. We've got people in the field and talking directly with the Minister of Health now to ascertain if at all there's any additions to the death numbers. But as of now, it remains at 3, and this happened prior to Melissa. In terms of rebuilding, yes, as you know, the government of Jamaica has in past years done absolutely well in trying to manage its economy, and we were seeing Jamaica on an upward trajectory. The challenge that happens that we'll see now is how does Jamaica finance this unprecedented devastation to the country. This will definitely need additional resources, financial resources, but also in terms of its impact on the various sectors of the economy. I mean, tourism has been impacted negatively. So we're obviously going to see reduced arrivals because the facilities, the resorts that were accommodating the tourists have been affected. And it didn't affect Montego Bay, which is the principal destination here in Ocho Rios. So it will take a bit of time before these facilities are restored, hence reduction of incomes coming in from tourism. I did mention earlier on the fact that agriculture will be seriously affected. So we're bound to see a spike in agriculture products, and that obviously is not good for the economy. So there will have to be a lot of soul searching around how we can get this economy back on its feet and how we can finance the devastation that has been caused by Melissa going forward.
Thank you. Abdelhamid and Islam.
Thank you, Mr. Dennis. This is Abdul Hamid Sayan from the Arabic daily Al-Quds Al-Arabi. According to CNN, I mean, just came in the report, says 30 casualties. So I don't know if you can confirm that. And my question is how the impact of this hurricane on countries like Cuba and the Bahamas. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Once again, we do not have direct confirmation of the casualties, and I mean casualties this time. I don't know if they're referring to deaths or injuries. So as far as we know, and this is information from government, we have confirmed 3 deaths, and these deaths were prior to the landing of Melissa. And we have a number of people coming into hospitals with injuries, cuts and bruises and things like that, and that's all we have at the moment. So I cannot confirm CNN's number of 30 casualties. And the second question, sorry, sir, could you just repeat that again?
The impact of the hurricane in Cuba and Bahamas and in the other Caribbean islands.
So the hurricane hit Jamaica as a Cat 5, a Category 5 hurricane, and once it's obviously we understand that it weakened as it left Jamaica into a Category 4, and it's also thought that by the time it gets to it probably hated as a Category 4, and as it gets to the Bahamas. This morning, I was speaking to my colleagues in the Bahamas. It's anticipated that it will be Category 2. So evidently, it's envisaged that there might be less damage, but again, we can never know, because even a Cat 2 hurricane is a fairly serious one. So my colleagues in Haiti, as well as in Cuba, are really putting forward already support interventions to help the government and the people of those countries concerned.
Thank you. Islam, Anadolu Agency.
Thank you, Mr. Zulu. Cuban officials stated that like almost 750,000 people were evacuated due to Melissa. What is the situation in Jamaica? You mentioned that like 1 million people were affected out of 3 million population. Is a pretty big number. What is the figure of people evacuated and when they may go back to their houses?
Well, just to clarify, first of all, the 1 million is just an estimate. It could be much more. As I said, we're still getting figures across from the different parts of Jamaica to really come up with a substantive figure. So it could be more, it could be less, but we anticipate it to be much more. Prior to the hurricane, the government of Jamaica did establish almost 881 shelters, which were made available to those who might, especially those lying around, living in low-lying areas of Jamaica, so they could move and evacuate from their homes. And we've seen a substantial taking up of those facilities by people who moved onto these facilities. But we did see that there was a bit of hesitation by some sectors of the communities in terms of moving away. Hence, the government did issue prior to, I think this was the day before yesterday, on the Monday, a mandatory evacuation notice, and provided appropriate transportation to get those people who were deemed to be very vulnerable as a result of where their homes were located to move to these shelters. So as of today, I don't necessarily have the figures, but I do know that 881 shelters were made available, and a lot of them were activated where food, water, and sanitation, as well as bedding facilities, are being provided by government. And these will continue to be provided until such a time that the areas from which these people were drawn from are deemed safe for them to return. In some cases, it might take a long while because the houses really have been devastated. It's just really, especially along the pathway of Hurricane Melissa. So there might not be a house to go back to. So they might have to stay in these shelters for a long while until some alternative arrangements can be done. The UN, with its agencies, is hoping to support government in repairing shelter, so that we can also help alleviate government's responsibility and its spend on this particular item.
Great. Yes. Xinhua and then CBC.
Thank you, Mr. Zulu, for your briefing. This is Yun Zhaopan from Xinhua News Agency. A lot of UN agencies have provided assistance to Caribbean nations to prepare for Hurricane Melissa. Do you have the number of UN personnel on the ground, and how the resources that UN has provided? Thank you.
Thank you so much. So as I did say earlier on in the meeting, the UN Hurricane Melissa gave us some notice, so we did mobilize resources and UN personnel to come to Jamaica pre-hurricane's landing. But of course, looking at devastation, we will need much more capacity. We already have resources and staff and technical equipment lined up in Barbados. We're trying to ship this to Jamaica at the moment. And as you know, all the three major airports were shut down prior to Hurricane Melissa. We have sort of heard that government is working seriously to getting the airport here in Kingston opened as soon as tomorrow. I believe they're doing some inspections at the moment, because it really be important to establish a corridor within which we can facilitate external resources and staff and all that to come in. In terms of the numbers, again, I think we need to be very alert to the fact that we are working closely with the government, so we will have to identify the sort of gaps in which government needs both technical and financial support, so that we can respond to that specifically. We do not want to be seen to be imposing. So, and the Jamaican government has been very clear, and have really worked hard to provide an avenue within which goodwillers and those of us who want to support can channel their commitments or their resources too, so that government has a hand in being able to coordinate the arrival of these goods. Because I think one of the things that the Jamaican government doesn't need at the moment is a huge number of people coming in uncoordinated, which might lead to further problems in terms of being able to support and get the needed support to the areas that need it the most. So at the moment, in short, we are expecting some resources from outside Jamaica, predominantly Barbados, where we have a hub, and also some support in terms of technical staff who work on the emergency telecommunications and helping government to restore the services in the country.
Thank you. Chris, Canadian Broadcasting.
Thank you for this. Thanks, Steph. Thank you for this briefing, Mr. Zulu. Chris Reyes with Canadian Broadcasting. If you could just focus a little bit on today's details, and what are some of the challenges that you're dealing with today, and what does the timeline look like in the next few days as you deal with these challenges, right down to how many UN staff are currently on the ground, how much aid is waiting to get in. I understand that yesterday the UN was trying to helicopter in some aid, but because the airports were closed, you were having trouble. Is that still the case today?
Indeed, I mean the immediate challenge we have at the moment is that, of course, those devastation, those flooding. So some of the areas really remain unreachable in terms of getting resources there. We have serious challenges in terms of connectivity, so we cannot get the reports from those areas. We have challenges in terms of energy. The grid is down in a substantive part of the country, so electricity is not there. So the electricity not being there, it cannot necessarily power the water installations. We still have some rain in some parts of Jamaica at the moment. And really the debris also that has been scattered as a result of this devastation of infrastructure really has meant that some of the roads have been cut off, so we can't reach these areas going forward. And this impacts us quite badly because we can't undertake the needed assessments that we need to do. And secondly, we can't get the resources that these people need in those areas that are affected. And also very significantly, there's still some fear of some landslides because the soil is wet. And as you know, Jamaica is a fairly hilly country. So that fear is still there. So at the moment, what we're trying to do is trying to see how safe it is to get to these areas, and we'll have to assess this using drones, for instance, but also some satellite imaging, which some of the UN agencies are providing, as well as other development partners, to be able to ascertain the level of damage, because this will really help us determine the level of support. And as I say, the Jamaican government is very keen on being able to control what type of resources come in, because these resources must be appropriate, and these resources might be the resources that are needed by those affected immediately. So yes, the airports still remain closed, and as I did say, the government has indicated that we're trying to get the airport in Jamaica open as soon as tomorrow. This will indeed provide a very good opportunity for all of us who have resources outside the country to be able to reach in. Obviously, we understand the caution by government because they can't just open up these airport facilities, as they have to be inspected and viewed to be ready to accommodate incoming resources. But we're also working with other partners to bring in the resources by sea. As I say, this might take a few days, but already we're getting some support from partners to ship in some of the things by sea, which is somewhat easier because then we don't have to wait for facilities that handle airborne vehicles to come in. So the immediate outlook, very difficult, but we're trying as much as possible, given the restriction, the constraints that we have, to open up and support government in getting the resources into the country.
Mr. Zulu, just a quick follow-up. Are you aware of any rescue operations happening at this moment?
Yes, I know that the government has already sent some teams out, especially in areas that have been flooded, because some people are marooned in those areas. So trying to move people who may have been marooned in those areas which are flooded to safe areas is ongoing. Given that now there's a bit of calm in terms of weather patterns. So there are actually some work going on in moving those who were marooned to shelters. And of course, I did say earlier on that there could have been some families who had resisted at the time for moving to shelters, but now, given the circumstances, have no other choice but to be moved, and the government is facilitating this by providing transport.
Thank you Dennis, thank you so much. We're going to let you go. We hope you and all our UN colleagues are safe and sound. Thank you for everything you're doing. And we hope you come back soon to give us an update, but really appreciate your time. Take care, Dennis.
Thank you so much, and my pleasure.
Thank you.